Chapter 12. Something unexpected happens.
How I wish I could go up the mountain with Peter,
Clara told Heidi and the Aum-uncle as they sat at the breakfast table.
I would love to see the high meadow.
Clara is now drinking 2 bowls of Little Swan's milk at each meal, just as I do, Heidi said. Do you think she is strong enough to go to the high pasture and spend a day with the goats? The grandfather stroked his beard thoughtfully.
You do look stronger, child. Will you try just once to stand on the ground?
Clara looked frightened.
It will hurt,
she said.
I will hold you. Try just for a moment.
Because she wanted to please him, Clara gritted her teeth and, clutching the old man's arm, pulled herself up from her chair and stood on trembling legs.
Wonderful,
the grandfather said, easing her back into the chair.
We'll try it.
The next morning, they were having their breakfast when Peter arrived with the goats. He did not give his customary whistle, and his flock were not milling around him as trustingly as usual. Peter had been striking them with his stick. His anger had reached the boiling point. Again he glowered at the wheelchair standing by the door. It seemed to Peter like an enemy. Peter looked around him. Everything was still. On impulse, he rushed at the chair and gave it a mighty push. It began rolling crazily toward the slope of the mountain, and in a moment it had disappeared over the edge. Then Peter rushed up the Aum as if he had wings. "Where is the chair?" Heidi asked when the grandfather carried Clara outside. She looked all around the hut. Could the wind have blown it down the slope?
And where is Peter?
Inquired the old man.
Our goats are still in the shed.
What shall I do without my chair?
Clara cried.
I shall never get to see the high Alp.
I'll carry you up,
the grandfather replied. When they reached the high meadow, they found the herd grazing peacefully, but Peter was nowhere to be seen. Heidi soon noticed him crouching behind a large rock. What's wrong with him, grandfather? He acts just like a goat who expects a beating.
Perhaps,
the grandfather said dryly as he settled Clara on a blanket on the ground.
He deserves a beating.
With that, the grandfather left them a packed lunch and went back down the mountain path. He would return in the evening. Heidi began picking flowers in a nearby meadow to make a bouquet for Clara. If only you could see the bluebells nodding in the sunlight, Clara, she called. I can almost hear their bells ringing. Heidi returned to her friend's side for a moment, then suggested, The meadow is only a few steps up the mountain around those rocks. If I held you, perhaps you could walk that far.
Oh no, you're much too small to hold me up.
I'll ask Peter to help. Heidi ran up the mountain to where Peter lay staring sulkily into the distance. Come help me, Peter.
No,
he said, refusing to look at her. Suddenly fed up with Peter's bad moods, Heidi stamped her foot and shouted, You'd better come and help, or you'll be sorry. Peter looked up in alarm. Did she know about the wheelchair? Would she tell the Aum-uncle? Although Heidi had only meant that she wouldn't give him an extra helping of cheese at lunch, Peter's guilty conscience made him leap up and follow her. Between the two of them, they soon had Clara on her feet and struggling up the slope. It hurt more than Clara would let on. She had tears in her eyes and was breathing heavily. She tried to bear her weight on her feet a little, but she could not move them forward. Just stamp down hard, suggested Heidi. Then it will hurt you less afterwards. Clara tried taking one firm step on the ground and then another, but it hurt so much she gave a little scream. Still, she took another step.
That didn't hurt nearly so much,
she said. Do it once more, urged Heidi eagerly. Clara did so. Then again and again, crying out,
I can, Heidi. Oh, I can. See, I can take steps one after another.
Oh, shouted Heidi. Now you can walk. When they reached the meadow, they all collapsed onto the soft grass.
Oh, how beautiful,
Clara sighed.
How glad I am that I could come here.
That evening, the grandfather came for the girls and carried Clara back to the hut. She slept more soundly than ever before, and in the morning she tried again to walk. As the days passed, her trembling steps grew more and more sure. When a letter arrived to say that Frau Sesemann would be arriving soon, Clara decided to keep her wonderful news a surprise. Questions. 1. Who encouraged Clara to stand on the ground first? 2. What did Peter get so angry about? 3. What did Peter do to give vent to his anger? 4. When did Clara find that her wheelchair disappeared? 5. Did Peter gather the grandfather's goats to herd in the meadow that morning? 6. Did Heidi threaten to ask Peter to help Clara to get to the meadow? 7. What made Peter leap up and go to help Clara? 8. Did Clara have difficulty learning to take steps on the ground? 9. Did Clara write home saying that she could walk? 10. Who was going to arrive soon?